All right, we are live. I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this sort of like future garage breakbeat type of track. This was something I was working on, but I don't think I'm going to finish it. So to make sure that it doesn't go to waste, I'm going to make a little tutorial for you guys. There's a lot of techniques in here that I think you could learn from, and I'm going to be going track for track here. So when I first started, I started off with these drum breaks here. Let me solo them for you. I start off with this one specifically, found it on Splice. It sounds like this. So originally it didn't have all this processing here, but what I like to do is I like to roll off the lows, and then I have this channel EQ strip. It's a preset called the drum loop smoother. It sounded good to me, so I just slapped that bad boy on here. I don't think I changed any of the settings there. This auto filter is more for automation. It's something I ended up not using, so it doesn't really need to be there. And then I'm using kickstart too because I added my own kick, and I'm just using it more as a side chain here. Let me play that real quick. It's just making way for that 909 kick. Then I added another drum break here. It sounds like this. So the reason I added that was I wanted to layer up the drum loops to make it sound a little bit more full. And this one was kind of like sounded like it was more of a top loop, so it kind of matched perfectly with the original drum break. Let me solo both of these. Cool. On to the next one. This one is just more of a fill here, so they're drum break chops here. All together. I felt like that added a little bit more movement to the whole drum break situation there, so once I had those 3 drum breaks and I did these processing to them, I added my own clap or rim shot here. So I just put that on the 2 and 4. It's a 2-step pattern, so that it's going to land on 2, 4, and it just repeats itself. It's pretty repetitive, but this is what it sounds like here. Cool. And then I added this open hi-hat that just goes on the upbeats, kind of like house open hi-hat. So there's no processing on the rim shot or open hi-hat. They were samples that already sounded good in the mix, so I didn't really touch them. I just messed with their volume. I do have processing on the top drum group, but I'll get to that after I go over this percussion loop here. And that sounds like this. So these top loops that you find in sample packs, they're super useful. It keeps your workflow going instead of making everything through MIDI or recording. So I tend to use those a lot, and it really fills out the mix as far as putting all your drums together, and it's just a great layer to add on to it. And then I have this 909 kick here. And I think I showed you that earlier, but this is what that sounds like. So it's just a regular 909 kick. You could find it if you have Ableton or any other DAW. Really, I think they usually have like 909 or 808 drum samples already that come with the DAW. As far as the processing goes, I slapped a glue compressor on there, and I'm not really compressing. I'm just using it more to like clip it. So there's a soft clip button there, and then if you turn up that makeup gain, it kind of like adds that clip sound to your kick drum. So if I turn this off, kind of makes it sound a little bit louder, especially with this compressor. But my thinking behind it was to add a little bit more saturation to that kick, and that's kind of like that sound to it, that clipped sound. I don't know if you'd call it saturation, but whatever. And then this compressor is just sort of taming the peaks of it. And then I have this EQ, and I'm dipping the frequencies around 310 hertz. That's the boxy range of the kick. So if I solo that, kind of cleans up the kick a little bit more. And then I rolled off the lows here. Pretty controversial. A lot of people don't do that, but I do it. Sounds good to my ear. I don't know if it's ruining my mixes, but it sounds good to me. Altogether, the drums sound like this. Cool. So as far as the processing for top drums, I'm using Fresh Air. This it's sort of like a exciter. So it kind of makes it sound a little bit brighter. It adds a little bit of noise, I believe. I'm not too sure what it does, but it sounded good at the moment, so I kept it on there. So just a little bit of brightness added to the top drums group there. And then I just have this compressor here. I'm using a opto compressor. It's kind of like the LA2A compressor, and it's basically just taming the peaks. Just 40% on the compression there. I think I turned down the output a little bit by about a dB. And then I have this thing here. It's a high frequency limiter. I believe it's similar to Soothe, and it kind of just tames those resonance that kind of pierce the ear, and that happens a lot with cymbals and hi-hats and super high frequencies. So you can solo what is getting compressed by this plugin here. So if I solo that, just those really like sharp things that kind of pierce the ear, especially after you slap a limiter on your main and turn it up. You'll start to really hear it on the headphones and speakers and stuff. And then I'm just rolling off the lows here with that EQ8. And I'll A-B it real quick for you. So that's with the processing. And then if I turn it off, really subtle, but you know, throughout the whole mix, it kind of adds up a little bit. And it's always good to just use your ear. If it sounds good to you, then you know it's right. There's no right or wrong. So those are the drums. So once I had this drum loop going, I added a bass after I had that drum loop going. So I created this respace in Wavetable. It's just a saw wave, and then I have this wavetable here, saw dual 1. And let me solo that. Sounds like this. So it's basically just a respace. As far as the notes go, we are in the key of C minor. I'm starting off with the root note there, C, and then I'm moving up to the minor third, and then I'm going to the minor 6 to the 5th. So if it was a chord progression, it would be C would be 1, the root note, and then move to 3, the minor third, and then minor 6, and then to the dominant 5. So a 1, 3, 6, 5 in C minor. As far as this respace, I made it by throwing a chorus here. This is a Tal chorus. It emulates, I believe, like a Juno 106 chorus. Turn it on and off. Kind of just makes it a little bit wider. Then I am throwing on a echo and reverb. So I just have echo going at a dotted eighth notes there, real low wet percentage there, only 14%, and then I have a little bit of reverb. I don't even think I touched anything on here. It's default right when you open it. The only thing I messed with is the mix knob, and it's real low as well, 15%. So I splitted the effects, so this is only happening on the highs of this respace. So those are the highs, and then I have the lows here, and I just have this bass mono utility preset. And then I am distorting it with amp. Just tried experimenting. I usually use saturator or different types of distortion, but this one sounded good at the time. And I think I just boosted the bass, turned down the mids, and then turned up the treble. And then I just messed with the dry wet knob. It's at 61%. This is just more of a oscilloscope for the waveform. Doesn't really do anything. It's just more for visual reference, I guess. And then I have an EQ afterwards. Again, rolling off the lows at around 52 hertz. I mean, it's not necessary because it is a bass, but it's something I do. Like I said, I don't know if it's ruining the mix or not, but it sounds good to me. And then I'm lowering the mids at around 681 hertz by 2 dBs, not too much. Just kind of like those higher mids. Just lowering it a bit to make space for all the other instruments there. And then I just have kick 2 again. It's just side chaining from that 909 kick. So every time that kick hits, kind of ducks out of the way. On to the next instrument. I have a pad here. Both oscillators, I'm using 9 shapes there. I just mess with the tone up there. And then once I got like a sort of sound, would kind of in. And then I'm using both filters here. Just the default, I believe it's a low pass filter or whatever. And just rolling off the highs. And then I added another auto filter. This auto filter is for movement. So I have this LFO, and it's sort of making this filter go up and down, so it adds a little bit of movement to that pad. And then I have an echo. It's at dotted eighth notes again. Um, you know, low wet, 37%. And then I have that vintage for bass. I didn't touch anything. This is right when it's all the same default settings. I just mess with the mix knob, and I have it pretty high. For pads, you kind of want it in the background. You don't want it to be in the front too much. And then I experimented with roar. I can't remember the thinking behind it, but a lot of the time in my music, I like to distort my reverbs. So I think that's why I threw that on there, but it's not overly done. Yeah, you can kind of hear that little like crackling distortion on those reverbs, and especially on the tails there. I'll probably go more into depth on a different video about that. And then I just have this EQ rolling off the lows, 130 hertz, just to remove that sub frequency so it doesn't mess with my bass. And together with the respace, it will sound like this. Cool. Good to me. Let's look at the notes on this pad here. So, this pad isn't really following that progression that this bass line is doing. So, I went over the notes for this bass line, and I'm kind of thinking of it as the main chord progression. So, it'd be a 1, 3, 6, 5. But if you look at this pad, I am not following that progression. So the thinking behind this is you kind of have your pad do something completely different from what your chord progression or bass line is doing. I'm looking at this not as a chord progression, but more as extensions to what chords are underlying it. So I start off with a C, and this is a C, so it's perfect unison. But then I also have the E flat there. So on C minor, that would be the minor third. So this would be triad. C triad, a C minor triad. So you have the minor third, the perfect fifth. That would be a C minor. So C minor plays through these two bars, and then I have G sharp. And then that's a G sharp and C. And what do I have on the top here? G sharp. What would be a C on G sharp? 0, 1, 2, 3. It'd be a major. So G sharp major. That's the major third. Yeah, major third. And then the D, I guess that would be a sus4. But then it goes to the G, which would be a perfect fifth. Yeah, so I look at it as more as extensions. Mirror pack. I think it's the getting it. It's just a drum. Here. And then with the processing, so in the back of the mix, if you double click on a waveform, you can add that Ableton does to its samples. So what I did was I beats, I put these, I don't know what that is, a double playback there. Turn this down to 40. I think I stretched it and then pitched it up an octave, and it kind of makes it sound like it's playing staccato notes. It's not sustained, so that's why it sounded like that. And I have it on what, quarter notes, so that's why that sounded like that. I forgot I did that. And then if you throw the processing on there, it makes it sound more of like a sustained note. Reasoning for that was movement. So with pads, drones, it's all about movement. Just because, you know, like it's playing held out legato notes for long periods of time, and it just boring and fatigues the ear. So you need to add movement for interest, and it makes it sound like it's not holding one note. It makes it like it's going places. So that's why I did that. It's a cool little technique. I like to mess with these algorithms a lot here. You get some really cool stuff. I'll probably do a video on that. Okay, so I have this gated ARP here. The notes, pretty simple. It's kind of like that concept I brought up with the pad. Turn this grid on. And basically what I did was I laid down a C note, but I put them like, I think that's eighth notes. Yeah, I put eighth notes. And then in between the eighth notes, I put these little 16th notes. And if you look at it, it's just that minor third again. And I'm going down to the D, so that would be like a sus2. I'm looking more as a melody more than like an arpeggio, like a chordal arpeggio. I'm looking at this more like scalar, more as a melody. Sounds like this. So that's a simple patch. It's in analog. Just saw waves. I have two saw waves. One is an octave above, and then this second oscillator, I just detuned it. I have a little bit of filter modulation here. It's just a little pluck shaped envelope on that filter. This is default. I didn't even touch this. I had a little bit of vibrato on the pitch there. Make it sound vintage, I guess, or make it sound analog. And then I just, same thing. I have a little bit of reverb on there, or not a little bit, 50% reverb. Didn't touch any of this shit again. And then the same technique I did on the other synth or whatever. I just did hyperdimension, and then I did that tube distortion from Serum FX that I like so much. And then I am just rolling off the lows there. Now I have Transgate, cool little plugin by Kilohertz, or whatever they're called. But basically, it's just like the name says, it's a Transgate. You could do the gate yourself manually, but I find this a lot easier. I could just throw it on, and it gives me that gated sound, and I could move on with my songwriting. Cool little plugin if you don't have it. Strongly suggest. I like it a lot. But let me A/B this processing here so you can hear what it sounds like without all the effects. Instant vibes right there. All right, and then for the second half of the drop, I threw in this lead sound. It's kind of like the gated ARP. It has the transgate on it, and then what am I doing with? Yeah, it's just a rocket-powered sound preset, lead conference. Yeah, it's from Serum. Sounds just like a saw lead. Very obnoxious sound, but when you throw the transgate on there, you know, some like bicep or over mono vibes. Kind of sounds like a vocal when you throw the transgate on there, so that's why I put it on there. It sounds really cool. And then I have this gated vocal. So this is just a vocal loop I found on Splice. I threw it in there. Processing, none really. I just have this transgate again. And then this EQ3, I think I put it on there just to turn off the lows. EQ3 is pretty underrated. I like it because of its simplicity. So you could just turn the lows completely off, turn the highs off, or you could just lower the volume of the mids or highs or lows. But that's why very cool. This without the transgate. All right, on to the next one. What do we have? Okay, so that was um, very cool preset. Quanta 2. It's called LEFO. and I think the vibe. I threw that with Quanta. It sounds like this. In the build, so it kind of like gels the build section and the drop section together. And then just that same drone from the drop, same ARP, just copy and paste just here. Same vocals, just without the gate, without the trans gate. And then I have this DJM filter from Xfer. Off the lows, same shit. And then what else do I have? The drop, just build this. Pretty cool, pretty minimal build up. What else do I have? Oh, I have this cool little like reggae vocal from like pretty cool. I like to find like old school hip hop boom bap like little like ad libs that I can throw in my electronic music. It just sounds dope. And then like especially with like reggae samples too, sounds cool as fuck. A little bit of processing on here. I threw pitch map. I think it just messed with the tone a little bit, and I like the sound of it. That's why I put it there. I'll A and B it. I believe it's real subtle, but this is it without it. And then when you turn this on, made it sound a little bit more robotic. Rolling off the lows, and then just a side chain. Just like quarter note side chain. And then moving on to effects. Pretty self-explanatory. I have an impact noise hitting at right when it starts. Solo it. I believe the sample was tonal, but I rolled off like the lows. So it's just that high end. And then I have this noise riser here. No processing on that. It's just a regular noise riser. Very useful. And then I have this riser that I made in Serum. Simple. Just a saw wave with 8 voices of unison. Turn the detune knob down a little bit. Through hyperdimension for width and chorus for width. A little bit of OTT there. And then reverb. And then this EQ just rolling off the lows again. And then I have the bend range at 12. And basically it's just pitch bending. And it's 2 notes. It's a C sharp and an E. And the riser. listening back, this should be a C. Okay. Okay, there we go. Little mistake. Um, basic, build filter automation here. Just a low pass going up, resonance going up. Basic sidechain thing that I do. Rolling off the lows again. And then that automation thing, I just put endless smile. And I just have it going. I just have it going up for the build. Keep forgetting not to talk while the music's playing because you can't hear me. But yeah, I just have this automation going up, giving it a little bit of sauce. And I'll play it back one more time, and that's what I got so far. Hopefully you learned some stuff. I'm going to be making more videos. This is my first video, so if I'm stumbling over my words and I'm taking a long time, it's a learning process for me. But yeah, hopefully you learned something. This is what I have so far, and thank you. Cool. That reminds me, I forgot to say that there is RC20 on the synth group. It's just adding a little bit of vinyl noise, a little bit of like pitch warble, and then a little bit of distortion, a little bit of digital goodness. Yeah, that's what I forgot to say.